Hello and welcome to the January 8th edition of the Gold, Goats, and Guns Short News. My name is Tom Luongo. We've got a lot to talk about. And today I want to talk about the attack on Alternative for Germany leader Frank Magnitz's beating that he took last night in Germany. So apparently, a leader of the party Alternative for Germany, or AfD, Frank Magnitz, was beaten nearly to death, his skull caved in, by three assailants wielding sticks who beat him while he was on the ground. It was only saved by a Good Samaritan, apparently construction worker, who came in and broke the fight up, and the assailants ran off because, of course, they didn't want to be identified. And he's in critical condition. I've seen the pictures. It's awful. They caved the front of his skull in. It's unbelievable. But this is nothing new. This has actually been very predictable. We've had multiple attacks now on members of quote-unquote right-wing parties or opposition to the left wing. Really, I hate to use the words left and right at this point. There's the Marxist left, or the hardcore progressive Marxist left, and then there's everybody else at this point. And that's the way they're portraying it. And there's everybody else who's in the opposition party. So it doesn't matter if it's Republicans here in the United States, or members of, say, the League in Italy, or AfD in Germany, or UKIP in the United Kingdom. So in a sense, the anti-left opposition, the most vocal of there. And so we had, we had Rand Paul's neighbor break his ribs for basically no reason. We had the shooting of Steve Scalise in Maryland, all done by left-wing crazies, all done by people who were triggered and gaslit to the point of violence by media dehumanization of their opposition. And that's a very, very dangerous state to be in. And the media and our elites, they want this. They've been stoking it. They want this to happen. Since the populist movement against globalism and the creeping totalitarianism in both the United States and Brussels started to wend its way up the political food chain over the course of the last, say, 5 years or so, the insistence on calling all of these parties ultra right wing, far right, alt right, akin to Nazis and the whole nine yards, does nothing but reinforce this idea within large swaths of the population. They don't see these people as people anymore. Now they're just evil, vile, 10-toothed idiots who are too stupid to realize that they need to be exterminated because they engage in wrongthink. That's where we are. And we now have people shouting other people down to the point of violence on Twitter for carrying the wrong ideas. Let's get rid of those people. Yeah, it's good. It's a good idea to curb their speech. We have the younger generations believing it's right to curb people's speech if you don't agree with it. Like, you should be able to use violence to not let people say what you don't want them to say. This is not a free society. This is horrible. I mean, we sit here and we stand agog at the level of political repression that goes on in much of the Muslim world, and here we're inviting it here in the West, when we're supposed to stand for democracy and liberal values and openness and all of that. And that's nonsense. These people aren't open. They don't want to hear what the other side has to say. They don't want to hear your grievances or my grievances about the horrible conditions that they've created with their grand plans of social engineering and their long march through the institutions that they've gone through over the last century. It's insanity. These people are ideologically possessed, and the beating that this man took is a reflection of that. And it's also something, like I said, that was absolutely wanted and stoked by the very people who benefit from this political disintegration. When people start losing their hold on power, and in this case, the hardcore Marxist leftists are losing power. They're losing control of parliaments all across the West in so many ways, that once that process starts, they turn to violence. And of course they will, because Marxism fundamentally and leftism fundamentally is statist. And statism is violence. Is we libertarians, especially as we anarcho-libertarians, understand this at the core of our being and identify it wherever we see it. And every once in a while, we have to kind of make our peace with the fact that there's going to be statism that we can't eliminate. and there's practical things that we have to live with in the world. Maybe, arbitrary political borders as a stopgap measure, and a variety of other things. But the ultimate truth here is that its politics is violence. Voting is even violent at a fundamental level, because you're voting for some guy to expropriate your money and then spend it. You're sanctioning this guy's allowed to steal from me, not that guy. And stealing is violence. Stealing is wrong. Taxes are theft, right? So understand that worldview is not just marginalized, but now that it's rising in popularity, now that the fundamental ideas behind those fundamental ideas are filtering up through the political zeitgeist, Marxists are reacting like they always do. Exterminate the heathens. They did it in Russia. They did it in the Soviet Union. They did it in China. They did it in Cambodia. They've done it in Germany in the past. Remember, the National Socialists were originally leftists. Let's not mince words here. It's historical revisionism to call them ultra right wing. They started off as hardcore socialists. You add nationalism to it, and all of a sudden socialism becomes right wing? No, there's an economic element to it as well, but that's a discussion for a different day. The problem here is that in general, this kind of violence tends to always start on the left, because the left are high in trait openness. We talk about the big 5 pillars of personality, and they don't like to see boundaries put on their behavior, whereas the right tends to be higher in conscientiousness, and therefore tend to be more willing to serve the society and serve the community by not engaging in violence first. That's not their first reaction. Their first reaction is to look at what the other person is doing. Okay, let's craft a solution here, because we don't want everything to fall apart. Whereas the left generally just wants no restrictions on their behavior whatsoever, and are willing to do whatever it takes to enforce that, including using the state as violence, which, if you really think about that, is a completely cognitively dissonant. But, once the logic trap starts, forever will it dominate your destiny. So we've seen this kind of thing in the past. Frank Magnus is just a long line, a succession of nominally right-wing politicians who have been attacked viciously by the left for no apparent reason other than the fact that they were who they are. Rand Paul was attacked by his neighbor for nothing, for basically being Rand Paul. Steve Scalise was shot up at a Baltimore baseball park, or Maryland baseball park, by some crazy triggered gaslit jackass with an AR-15. With an AR-15. It's a good thing he didn't have full auto, right? So this is going to get worse before it gets better. This is all part of the process. And what we have to do here is not react to this the wrong way. The takeaway here, the important part here, is that we cannot react to this the wrong way. We have to understand that this is exactly what they want us to, how they want us to react. They want us to react with violence. They want us to do this. We're watching these same levels of provocations happen at the geopolitical level with the neoconservatives who run our government here in the United States, continually trying through proxies and whatnot to poke Russia into shooting first, so then we can feel justified for a full NATO invasion in Syria or Ukraine or the whole 9 yards. But note that Putin refuses to take the bait. Well, it's the same thing here. We need to keep refusing to take the bait. The yellow vest protests in France and other places need to stay as violence-free as possible. And if the violence starts to document the fact that maybe those agitators are, paid operatives to create an illusion of violence, which has been done many times here in the past. It's probably already been done during some of these early yellow vest protests. I'm almost positive of it. I don't have any proof of this. This is just my intuition, because this has happened so many times in the past. It's reasonable to assume that it will happen again. So what we have to realize here is that we are being played. The left and the right, the libertarian right, the authoritarian left, we're all being played while these people what I call the Davos crowd tries to continue to push forward these crises to then use them as opportunities to get even more control over the societies that they think they deserve to control because we're just, stupid plebes, 10-toothed rubes, and the rest. But there's going to come a point where we're going to have to utilize the weapons that we have. And I hate to say that because you want to hold that off for as long as possible because violence is the state's way. It's not a path to permanent political solutions. Politics got us into this mess. It will not get us out of it. And adopting the state's methods will not win us this fight. Adhering to first principles and attending to your communities and your families will. All right, this has been the Gold, Goats, and Guns short news for Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. If you like what you heard today, please give a like and subscribe down below. That'd be great. I do live streams every Monday night at 8 here on YouTube and Friday nights at 8:30 or on Periscope if you're not here. So then you can follow my work over at tomluongo.me or goldgoatsandguns.com. And you can follow me over on Twitter at TFL1728. Support my work at Patreon for now until we come up with a different solution. Thank you, guys. Have a great afternoon and keep your stick on the ice.